Thank you for listening to Organic News here on Awake Radio, where we try to give you news that is organic. Welcome to another evening of Organic News. I am Catherine Waters. We have with us Paki Wieland.
Yes, Paki Wieland in Northampton.
Awesome. You're from Code Pink.
Yes.
And we're going to be taking a trip next Tuesday we're landing in Cairo, and we're attempting to cross a blockade into Gaza.
That's correct, yes.
And the blockade is in a town called Rafah, R-A-F-A-H.
That's correct. Rafah is partially in Egypt and partially in Palestine. There's Rafah, Egypt, and Rafah, Palestine.
Right. I looked it up on the map to see exactly where it is, and it's near water.
It's right on the Mediterranean.
Right.
That's why there have been so many attempts, flotillas, to sail to Gaza to break that blockade. Oh. In fact, yes.
Do you know Ken O'Keefe?
No.
Yeah, he's the only American that I was aware of. That's how I kind of learned about this, was through him. He, again, he's like a former military guy. He denounced his U.S. citizenship. He was on the flotilla like a couple of years ago.
Uh-huh.
And he was doing all of this reporting from Gaza, trying to show the people like what was going on. That's if you ever get a chance to look up Kenneth O'Keefe, I mean, it's unbelievable. Like, some rare folks that are really, willing to, put themselves in harm's way to bring to bring people, the news as to what's going on.
Yes.
Over there. So tell us about when you were there in 2009, you said, in Gaza.
Yeah, well, what happened, that starting in December, at the end of December of 2008, the Israeli Defense Forces, the Israeli Army, began a wholesale bombardment of the people of Gaza. They just started bombing Gaza. And among the things it did was they used white phosphorus.
Right.
Which is something that is banned by international law. You use white phosphorus to send up flares in the air, not to shoot at people, because when it starts to burn, it just continues to burn through your skin. So there's some horrific things that happened, including the loss of over 1,400 lives, most of them women and children, civilians, most of them having nothing to do with Hamas or any kind of armed resistance to the Israelis.
And this is all going on because the Israelis just want to take over all the territory.
Well, I'm leery of just doing the because, of looking for a clear linear explanation, because I think it's very complicated. I think that is certainly a piece of it. Why did they choose then? If you remember, in this country, during that period, the Republicans had lost the election. Barack Obama had won the election, and the inauguration was going to happen in January, later in January. The actual bombing, the actual onslaught of Gaza ended before Bush left office. Mm-hmm. So it's important, I think, to pay to note some of the things that were happening simultaneously or at the same time. But anyway, so a number of us were totally shocked and outraged at this use of force. Wow. That it was, and there have been reports. The Hamas, the Palestinians had sent rockets over the border. Even if they had, the retaliation was so out of balance
Right.
that it's just been decried by human rights activists across the country and across the world. Now, what's very interesting for us to remember too, and this is where the question you asked about how, what was the purpose of this? What was the function? And I think in fact, in part, it's to shore up the allegiance between the United States of America and the State of Israel.
Right.
And to the extent even that when there was an investigation done, there was an outside investigation into what were the causes, what actually happened during the onslaught, and what were the results. The jurist who was brought in to do it as the so-called objective person was a man who is a self-identified Zionist. His name is Goldstone, and he is a South African. And his report on what he found in Gaza was an absolutely scathing report on what Israel had done. The bombing of, and I actually saw these, the bombing of hospitals, the bombing of schools, not schools that were doing, that were creating chemical warfare. These were schools that students were learning the basic things that you learn in school: reading, writing, arithmetic, the history, all the things that we learn in schools and colleges. These were not targets that could have been justified by any observer. So, yes.
I was just going to say, it sounds so much like what goes on, in Afghanistan and all the other places where they claim to be bombing, the bad guys when in fact they're not.
Right.
I mean,
yes.
just recently there was a report of a wedding turning into a funeral in Yemen.
In Yemen, yes, in Yemen, yes. Yeah, it's so this but what happened was after Goldstone gave his report, it was totally discredited by both the United States and Israel.
Figures.
Yes, so so I think it's really useful to look at what some of the underlying issues are, and I just last night, I and two other Code Pink friends, Priscilla Lynch and Ellen Graves, were at a gathering at Clark University in Worcester, Mass. They were celebrating the Students for Justice in Palestine. We're acknowledging and having many events during this anti-apartheid week, and it's very important for us to look at what is actually happening to the people in Palestine, to what is happening to people in Gaza, and one of the things that I really appreciated was the level of civility. The folks in the audience, the students who were all undergraduate students, acknowledged that they really run the gamut. That some people were self-proclaimed Zionists, and to total supporters of the rights of the Palestinians, and were quite anti-Israeli. What even the young man who was the most vocally pro-Israel acknowledged that there was great injustice done to the Palestinians.
Right.
And I think this is where the egg is cracked. This is where we come together to say it is not simply ideologies that people have been taught since childhood, but it's about our shared humanity, and that it isn't governments who are going to provide the way out of this morass. It is people to people. It's people coming together to expose the lie of all the governments.
what is the justification of the Israelis though? Like that's, I mean, when things are just so blatantly, clear that the victims, and the injustices are happening to the Palestinian people, and that the Israelis are clearly the bullies.
Well, yes. I mean, I think that's part of it, and that's part of what happens to bullies. That they get away with it because they scare people, and a piece of it, I think, is, it's certainly what the powers that, one of the important questions I think for us to ask ongoing is who benefits. Who benefits from the tension in the Middle East? It is certainly not any of the Palestinian people, and I would dare say it is not even the Israeli people.
They're probably being used as pawns, right?
Well, if you're, it's a little like the so-called war on terror in this country. As Homeland Security cracks down and we lose more and more of our freedoms,
right.
Do we feel any more secure? Who benefits from the U.S.'s involvement in these kinds of things, in this so-called protection racket, which we know. I mean, do you feel any safer today than you did on September 8th, 2001?
I haven't felt safe pretty much most of my life, I would say.
But
yeah. I mean, I when I was younger, I used to really believe that I could make my life better. I naively believed that if I did all the right things, which I can't say that I actually did, but I thought that I was doing all the right things, and I wasn't, because I had no idea that the world was really as corrupt as it is, and that it's actually gotten worse since I've been alive.
Right, but the thing is, something has driven you. So what you're coming with us? We're going to Gaza in a week. What is it that's driving you to do this? That's compelling you to do this?
I mean, well, most of my life, I always had a huge passion for justice, and standing up for what's right, that I used to get in trouble for most of my life. Like I was always standing up and pointing out the injustices, and people around me didn't like it.
Yes.
I pretty much got really squashed into submission for like decades, even though, on my own, like I still did things, like I spoke to you earlier about, the time that I spent at, Kripalu Center for Yoga and Health, and the Omega Institute and places like that, because I was always coming at things from a purely health-based, physical, mental, emotional and spiritual standpoint. That, just simply put, it was clear to me very early on that we were being oppressed, and that being smart was criminal. Telling the truth was criminal at an early age. I could see that, that, I used to think to myself, imagine walking was a crime, like using your healthy and functioning limbs was like a criminal act. Like, how dare you? Like you're trying, you're asking for too much if you want to use your four limbs. So on an emotional level, it's kind of like the same thing. I mean, why should some people be allowed to have so much and like way above and beyond what so many of us have, and yet when you try to express yourself, just like reaching for a glass of water with your arm, because you're thirsty, to the little guy is looked at like, you're a criminal.
Right.
And that was so clear to me, and I used to try to point that out to people, and forget it. Like, I mean, it's like that's what always really made me so mad all my life was that I never, and like that was way before I knew anything about the Fed, way before I knew anything about banks, way before I knew anything about Republicans or Democrats. It was always the people that were oppressing each other and keeping each other down and training and conditioning, me at the time and each other to be so unhealthy. And I could see that everyone around me had the worst habits as far as like being like successful, as far as like just living to what you're entitled to, as far as knowing and exercising your rights. Like most of the people around me, like that I grew up in my neighborhood, were just complete boobs and had no idea what they were doing.
Huh.
And everyone keeps each other down. And it's like, it's normal to just kind of have a job and just live paycheck to paycheck. And God forbid you should, want more than that, or, want to fully express yourself and maybe even get paid to say what you want to say or what you believe or what you know. Again, that's like criminal.
But before you started talking about this history and this awareness you have, somewhere along the line there were these seeds of desire for justice. This was an awareness of injustice and a desire to have what has been called the purpose-filled life, the purposeful life.
Right.
And so what you've chosen to do, and what I've chosen to do, is to go on this actually this witness to Gaza, to stand with all these international women, all these other international women, to speak out for the people of Gaza. And I think that in and of itself is so powerful, because it's not what governments are going to do, because governments won't do anything unless we, the people, lean on them to do it.
I definitely agree that the people definitely need to start doing stuff. I mean, there's no question about it. And with all, money is completely just contaminating everything. And what, right, like what's happening in Gaza is kind of like a byproduct of just all the corruption caused by, just fake money that gets created and politicians that get bought and sold and owned. We need to make, standing up for what's right, and money should be funding what's right and should be funding justice, not being used to oppress and just slaughter people.
Right. So part of what we're doing is, in doing this trip, we're modeling another way of diplomacy, another way of engagement with one another, another way of bringing down barriers.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm not going to say that I wasn't like a little bit nervous to go at first. I mean, if I spoke to and let one of my cousins know what I was doing, and of course, like most people think you're nuts, like to go to these places and put yourself in, harm's way. And, I actually couldn't sleep a couple of times because, I don't want anything horrible to happen to myself or anybody else. I mean,
of course not. Yeah.
I know that, Code Pink has gone several times. I think it's 7 or
quite a few times. Yes.
And I don't think anything, horrible has happened to anyone who's gone. And in fact, I was chatting with someone on the computer yesterday, who knows someone that went and said that it was a profound experience, which is, what I'm looking for. And, like what I feel that going there, for me, it's kind of like redefining what like I guess like pleasure is, or I mean like your average person kind of normally seeks pleasure from like going on a vacation, maybe taking a cruise, or partying and drinking and things like that. So for me, like, this is kind of like redefining what it means to to do good things, or to have like pleasure, like helping and standing up for justice and people that are being like oppressed. Like, that kind of, to me, is better than going like on some party vacation where you're just going to drink yourself into oblivion.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So, so you got an invitation. How did you hear about this trip?
Yeah, like when I used to do the radio show with Danny Schechter, the news dissector on Progressive Radio Network, about a year or so ago, and he had Jolie Terraris, I believe, if I'm saying her last name right, went on the trip, and she was a guest on the show, kind of talking all about it. And I remember like kind of listening to her and looking at her and like being like, oh my God, like, how courageous, or scary, all these things were like going through my mind. And she said that she felt safe, the entire time. And I kind of had it in the back of my mind, like, ever since then. And then I just, I see Code Pink at so many of the protests, ending the war on Syria. Debra Sweet from World Can't Wait. I'm pretty good friends with and attend like so many of the same protesting. And we've gone to Fort Meade for the Bradley Manning trial a couple of times. And I had her on, this radio show a few times. And so I've seen, Medea Benjamin at the NSA protest down in D.C. back in October. I've been to her talk on drones at the Catholic Worker. And I've always come from kind of like my background has always been like a fitness background. Like, I've been attracted to fitness, on all levels all my life. And I believe in being fit, living to our full potential, physically, and mentally. Like, you have to challenge yourself. And I really, I want to be around people that aren't just your typical kind of going along with the system kind of people and going to work and just paying your bills and getting your paycheck and, keep your head down and don't ask any questions. Like, I don't want to be around people like that. Like, I've always been like this kind of person that likes to push myself. I've always pushed myself. I've never done anything for money in my entire life. I never made money a priority, ever. I never kept some job and sacrificed any kind of morality to have a paycheck. I always put standing up for what's right first, and left numerous jobs most of my life, because I could always feel that you have to sacrifice things that have real value in order to hold on to some job, which never made any sense to me. And so I did work for the fire department, in the emergency medical service in New York for 6 years. And even that wasn't like challenging enough, because it's all about the system, and just kind of keeping the system going. Although once in a while you'll get like a real call, most of the calls are like not real calls that you're basically just doing just to have a job. And that, again, like, I used to always get this really frustrated sense that what's up with the system? Like, it's so rigged. Like, everything is so unnatural. Like, why can't anything just be natural? Like, why can't jobs be natural? Like, why can't you be there to do what you're supposed to do? Like, help people like EMS is supposed to be, rather than some glorified car service just so people could have a job, you know?
Right.
And, you know, I thought it was just me and maybe like the jobs that I was picking. Personal training. I did personal training for 15 to 20 years, and, you know, everything always was about money and never what it was supposed to be about. And, like, all you want to do is live, naturally.
Yes.
And it almost seems impossible to get away from like an agenda. There's always an agenda. Like, nothing is ever like, when I was young, maybe I had jobs that didn't have an agenda. But once you get to that age where you have to have a job and you depend on a certain amount of money to have an income to survive, forget it. It's all about an agenda.
Yeah.
And I refuse to live that way.
And I think the good news is there are lots of people who are in that place who refuse to live that way, and we find one another, and we end up doing wonderful things like going to Gaza and standing for peace, standing for justice, and just amazing things happen. Community is created.
What happened when you went to Gaza in 2009? What went on? Like, what did you see?
What we saw was most of the devastation that was happening, that had happened during that Operation Cast Lead. We saw hospitals that had been bombed out, and we saw pieces of bombs actually that had the United States, made in the United States, on them. So there were two things. First of all, there's the outrage at what the government of Israel has done. And there is also, and this is what I think gives me the fortitude to do it, it's standing up against what my government is doing.
Right.
And when you see how complicit the United States is in the Israeli aggression, it demands a response of outrage,
right,
against that injustice.
Right.
So I think it's and listen to people's stories. We stayed in someone's home a couple of nights who there was plastic on the wall on the window where the window had been because it had been bombed out.
Jesus.
We visited students who had been going to class on the morning that the bombing started. And just to see the strength of people, and what a toll it takes on people to have lived through that kind of onslaught, and for what? Why did this happen? And of course there was the one man who his name is Muhammad, and he lived in Khan Yunis, and he and two of his sons were going during a ceasefire because the Israeli army would tell people, the IDF would tell people, there's a ceasefire between, say, 12 and 2. And so he was taking his two sons to a family gathering for a meal, and they were shot. The car was stopped, and they were ordered to get out of their car. One son was shot and killed immediately. The other one was shot, but the father knew this was not a mortal wound. And he sat holding his son for 18 hours while the son gradually bled to death. Now, listening to the story of this man is a total heartbreaker.
Yeah.
And so what it does is it revitalizes in me my need to stand for justice.
Right.
And so those were some of the things that happened while I was there.
And did you speak to like, like local people also, like farmers and fisher men or
We
women?
we spoke to farmers. We spoke to people who were fishermen. We spoke with people who who really we spoke with people in communities where the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, had come in and had shot members of the family in front of the children. So we saw a lot of that too. Um, it was just it was absolutely horrific to hear these stories and to wonder how is it that human beings do this to one another.
It really is unbelievable. Like that, that's a good, a really good question. And, we've been hearing a little bit more about, stop and frisk and things like that here in the United
Yes,
States. And a lot of, I mean, like tomorrow, as a matter of fact, there's going to be, the Trayvon Martin, they're having a protest. I think it's like an anniversary or something of Trayvon Martin. And, so we're starting to get here a bit of what these people experience, every day, at such extremes is
yes,
actually, so that's what people need to realize. Like if we don't start, standing up and being willing to go and assert ourselves by going to other places like Gaza, that we're actually giving permission for it to happen in this country more and more and more. It's gonna, stop and frisk and is gonna be more exaggerated and right, like the guy that shot the kid for playing the music too loud.
yes, yes.
I mean, it really, I don't know, I really don't know what people in this country are waiting for. I really don't.
Well, do you think perhaps we've been sold a bill of goods, and what we need to do is continue to join with people who are much more in the limelight as whistleblowers, but to stand for the kind of world we want to see.
Right. We have to create the world that we want to live in. I mean, paying some politician, your money, it can't buy you that world that we want to create. We have to physically do it. I mean,
Right,
because money is completely fake. I mean, people, they're going to just use your money against you. They're going to use your sweat against you. I mean, most people in this country don't even know that money is a debt note. They don't even realize that it has no worth at all and that it represents debt. Most people have no clue
right,
of that simple basic fact that money is used to sell debt and to perpetuate debt rather than having any value. I mean, if people, that the Fed just creates, writes checks that they don't, there's nothing backing it. I
right,
mean, people they're clueless. They don't realize that their birth certificates, sell them into slavery.
right.
I
So
mean,
then we come along and we have these wonderful opportunities to stand with others for justice, to stand with people who are the suffering, and for whom we can bring an awareness that they're not alone.
and people have no idea, like they don't even realize like how elevated it could make you by going and standing up for people like in Gaza and Afghanistan or Somalia, the women of the Congo.
Right,
I mean, like that's where I use the word organic a lot because I'm always like I always try to think in terms of nature. Like I'm always trying to think about how does nature work, and I try to be as close to how nature works as possible. And, just like in your body, if you have a cut or an illness or anything like that, the white blood cells in your body, they'll get right to work, healing the cut, or attacking the bacteria or whatever the bad
Sure.
cells in your body are. So, I mean, globally, I feel like that's the way that, that's a normal, healthy way to be in life. You stand
Yep.
up for what's right. You step into action like a white blood cell would. I mean, that's not complicated to understand.
No, it's not. It's a wonderful more than a metaphor. You're right.
I've been a health person, like I said, like most of my life, really, since a young age. I just was always studying about health on some level, because, like this, I felt, everybody was always like, oh, money, get a job, oh, make money, blah, blah, blah. But nobody ever really encouraged you to do what was right. Like, no one ever encouraged you to be happy in your job, or to make money doing what you like or what you
Right.
believe in. Like, nobody ever encourages you to do that. And I'm like, screw money. I mean, it's what you do that matters, right?
Yes.
Like that more organic way of being in the world.
And so that is what's taking you to Gaza.
Yeah.
Yes.
And, I plan on filming. I have a lot. I bought extra, discs, the cards, with a lot of memory on them.
Uh-huh.
8 gigabytes. I got a 16 gigabyte one. To fill up like hours and hours of, photography and video. And
Oh, excellent.
so let me ask you. So you got into Gaza the last time.
I got into Gaza the first time. I got into Gaza in March of 2009. I was part of this mental health delegation.
Right. Yeah.
And,
talk about that.
And after that, the Viva Palestina people came in. That was what the British guy, actually the Irish folks, who were bringing food goods and very necessary supplies to the people of Gaza. They had driven from England, actually, all the way down, and picked up people all through Europe and then across northern Africa.
Really?
Yeah. Check it out, Viva Palestina.
Holy moly.
So, yeah. And then Code Pink came in. And I had known people in Code Pink before that. I had been to the Code Pink house, but I hadn't realized that they were taking the same trip. They were going to be there at the same time we were. And so I was really persuaded during that trip to more closely affiliate myself with Code Pink and to really identify as Code Pink, because I think it's because I'm a woman, and this is a women's led peace and justice initiative, and I'm so proud of those wonderful women who continue to speak out and to act for justice. I think it's quite extraordinary,
Yeah.
and so it's wonderful to be a part of it.
Well, I mean, like that's what I always kind of feel like we need more of in the world, because capitalism, like the extremes of capitalism, have just taken over like so much, and there's nothing to balance it out. Like we need more feminine, or I mean, what normally people think of as like feminine qualities, but are also part of men. Too, like caring and compassion. I mean, we all have masculine and feminine traits within us, and it's as if we're being conditioned to destroy the caring and this the compassion within us, and just be like so super aggressive and right, like what you said before about like it's unbelievable, like the way that people treat each other.
Yes.
I mean, it's just like some like I mean, I don't even know what to call it. And, I mean, it's not even masculine. It's just this extreme of just, it's not even.
Yes, we don't have to genderize the language
Right.
at all. It's
Right.
just it's the question is, how do we want to treat one another? How do we want to be in the world together? And one of the things we get to do when we're on things like this delegation to Gaza is, first of all, among ourselves we create community, and then we go out from beyond ourselves to the women of Gaza. We meet the women, other internationals, and find ways to increase our support for one another and move forward.
Exactly.
You know?
I
Yeah.
mean, it's is it mostly women and children that are being harmed over there? Is that right?
Well, I think everyone is being harmed. I mean, that's the sad thing. It's um, there are no jobs. The whole country, the whole of Gaza, which is not obviously a country, but it's this cut off part of Palestine that is totally under the control of Israel, and so there's no autonomy. There's no sense of the power of self-worth.
Right.
You know, um, that when Benjamin Netanyahu comes before the Congress of the United States and says, "I don't know what the problem with these Palestinians is. We provide everything they need." Well, when you're a child, it's very nice to have your parents provide everything you need. But
Yeah.
honestly, these are grown-ups, and they do not need to have Israel pretending to give them everything they need.
Yeah, pretending to be giving them everything.
Right.
Right. Like that's the appropriate terminology. It's almost like beware of the people that claim to be helping.
Right. Yes. And because what they're actually doing is taking away their agency, it's taking away their autonomy, it's taking away the sense of dignity. So hopefully that's what we help to restore. We encourage people and support them because they know what they need more than we do. Certainly,
Exactly.
yes.
Right,
So
listening. That's a really good quality to have.
so so we'll keep on, and it's wonderful that you're coming on this trip too. That new people are coming, and we'll have again a good cross section of some of us old timers, some of you who haven't been there before, who will get to know one another and expand our own sense of community of people working in this country and around the world for the kind of justice we want for everyone.
Exactly. And let me ask you, how many from Code Pink are going? Is it 15?
I think right now they're 15, but I was actually trying to find a list today and couldn't of who's the names of people. So I'm a little out of that loop right now.
And then there's also a group of French people that are going, like about,
Yes, yes.
I
I
believe.
mean, that's the other thing. It's not simply folks in the U.S. who are supporting the the people of Gaza, but it's an international movement.
Right.
So we need to be aware of that. That it's not simply what's happening here, but what's happening all over the world, where people are aware of what's happened to the people of Palestine, and are calling it apartheid, are challenging AIPAC's lies, are supporting the boycott, divestment, and sanctions, and really, it's quite extraordinary. I'm very hopeful that the court of public opinion is with the Palestinians.
Can you speak about Hamas and what that is? What they are, Hamas?
All right. I'm not, my most of my learning about Hamas has not been in school. It's been on the ground. It's been reading. It's been in conversations. But once upon a time, the closest thing that we could relate to that is Hamas was perhaps the Black Panther Party, which which sprung up in the 60s and 70s here in this country. And because what they did was they fed the hungry. They gave a sense of worth to the Palestinian people, for whom the Israeli government certainly, and I want to make this really clear. This is the Israeli government. It's not the Israeli people, because they're really as mixed as the people in this country. There isn't an Israeli voice. There are people in the Israeli peace movement. There are people in Israel who want justice for the Palestinians. But I'm digressing. Back to your question about Hamas. So it's much more like the Black Panthers were, who set up feeding programs, food programs, and encouraged pride among the people, particularly the young people. So there was a vacuum because the Palestinian Authority has a lot of corruption in it. And the people of Gaza did not want to just fall in with the Palestinian Authority, so they stayed distinct and separate from them. And what ended up happening was, when it was election time, there was no party but Hamas. So they hastily put together a platform. And I mean, it didn't come out of nowhere, because it was based on what the people had already seen. These were people doing good works. These were people who were identified with the people they served.
So yeah. And how did they get labeled terrorists?
Well, because the United States did not want this duly elected, and keep in mind, the Hamas government did not come into being because the United States had a coup. The Hamas government came into being because the people of Gaza elected them. Now, they've made mistakes. They've been portrayed, and I actually met a man in the cabinet, and I can't remember now what it is. His name is Yosef, and he reiterated time and again that the people of Gaza had no intention, the Palestinians had no intention of driving Israel into the sea, of driving the Israeli people into the sea, of driving Jewish people into the sea. What they want to do is they want to live in their land, right, where historically they have lived. And so the Hamas party was elected, and I actually remember listening to the radio. I live out in Western Mass, so we don't have Pacifica the way you do in New York. But hearing on the radio that Hamas had been elected, and that the United States was very upset about it. Now, you would think that with all the power the United States of America has, with all the power this government has, they wouldn't have a hesitation about using diplomatic strength to deal with any government. But instead, they labeled them terrorist.
Right. Well,
now, I don't want to make this, too simplistic sounding, but the governments of the United States and Israel have done more to create the tension in between Israel and Palestine than any other factors.
Well, if you if you don't mind me saying so, you were kind of starting to sound a bit like John Perkins before. You
Uh-huh.
know, the guy that
Well,
wrote Confessions of an Economic Hitman.
yes.
Because he like that's exactly what he said when he was describing the work that he was doing back in the 60s and 70s and right, like any time like a leader would side with the people and and not allow the leader to be corrupted, so that some rich company can come in and set up camp and make a few rich people richer and leave the people.
Yes, yes. Well, I know that the stories that he wrote about it, and I think he's he's right on, and I'm so appreciative of how
So that's
he.
yeah, that's when you said, "Oh, the United States isn't going to like that very much." I mean, that's what he used to say all the time.
Yes,
Anytime like the U.S. like can't just take over and someone stands up to them, of course they don't like it, but that doesn't make them a terrorist.
that's right. And until and the thing is, this is there's this great slogan. When the people lead, the governments will follow. That it really is up to us to set these examples and um, to do the kind of enacting of being the way we want our government to behave. Because there aren't a lot of models. We're living in a postmodern world, but the people in power are still very modernist with their dualities and their hierarchies. They haven't quite caught up with thinking people. So it's really incumbent on us as people of conscience, of people who see injustice and want it corrected and are willing to put our bodies right there to take a stand, not from a comfortable armchair, but to actually go to the places where there is tension, where there is turmoil, and to stand with the people who are suffering the injustice, and then to come back home. Come back home and to bring it home to the people here, to our friends and neighbors for whom the story of Palestine is so marginalized that without us bringing it to people's attention, nobody knows about it.
Right. And I guess I'll also add that part of the reason why I really want to go, yeah, I mean, I'm somewhat of what you would call a journalist. I mean, I've been documenting Occupy, but I'm independent, and I mean, I don't have a lot of funds. I mean, to be going and traveling the world to do any kind of reporting, but so I want to go to Gaza to do like a lot of filming because that we don't have a real media, a challenging media that gives people the truth and stands up to the people with all the money and the power. And so who else is going to do it? I mean, some people like The Guardian or Al Jazeera or something like that, perhaps.
Uh-huh.
Or Democracy Now. So I mean, I would like to do it. I'm trying to get people to donate to my trip, but it's not that easy, boy.
Right. Yes. Well, these are very hard times too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. I know. Yep. Exactly. And so we're going to be getting there. We're going to try to we're going to try to cross into Gaza on the 6th of March.
Right.
And we're going for International Women's Day.
Uh-huh.
Which is the 8th, March the 8th.
Right. And I tell you what was very interesting. I mean, I've known about International Women's Day and variously have celebrated it here for years. And what I was really so pleased with was we were starting out, we were living, when I was in Gaza this first time, we were staying with a family, and they were much more aware of the meaning of International Women's Day than some of the people in our delegation. So So I think that's the other thing, that that people outside the U.S. are often so much more sophisticated regarding what's happening internationally, and that's, I think, a very good thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, we need to, to bring people the right information to make the right decisions.
You're right.
I mean, people are being so diverted because they're not being given the right information and the right clear feedback.
Right. So that's one of our tasks, is to really get the story of the people on the ground, to get the stories of the people who are living in Gaza.
I mean, I'm trying to prepare myself, for what I'm going to see over there.
Yeah, well, I think this is a wonderful thing. You will have so many opportunities to meet, professionals, to meet people who are working in civil society, to meet just ordinary people. And so I'm glad you're bringing your camera. I'm glad you're bringing your equipment to document the lives of people. And also, this is very significant, Catherine. I think that it's the 5th anniversary of the ending of the what they call Operation Cast Lead, that onslaught, and we'll be able to see what's actually changed in the 5 years. Have things gotten better? Have things gotten worse?
Do you?
You know that Gaza is the most densely populated place on the planet.
Right. That's densely populated.
Yes. And
per square, mile or kilometer.
Yes. There are 1.6 million people in Gaza, which is, I think, 5 miles wide and 25 miles long.
They can't even leave if they wanted to.
I'm sorry?
They can't even leave if they wanted to.
No, they can't. And one of the men I met last night, one of the young students, hasn't been back home to Gaza in 10 years. That he wanted to go back. His family is living in the West Bank, but he didn't have the right papers. I mean, the bureaucracy, the bureaucratic hoops that people have to go through is unbelievable. I mean, when we talk about incidents or scenes being Kafkaesque, I mean, this happens again and again and again for the people who live in Gaza, and who want to leave to go to school, who want to return. It's horrific.
I mean, I can't even imagine, what it must feel like to have to, how do they cope with the post-traumatic stress that must be going on over there?
Well, they have a good mental health center, but I don't know, and I think that's a very important question to ask, and to ask of the people there. How are people coping? Because everyone is suffering from some kind of post-traumatic stress.
That's what I'm saying. It's
Yes.
That's the debt, that's the body being in a state of never-ending deficit.
Yeah.
I mean, trauma is literally the body being in a debt that it can't get out of. That's what trauma is. I mean, and getting a person out of that deficit, you might not ever be able to do it.
Right.
And that's why so many of the soldiers even end up committing suicide. A lot of soldiers.
Yes. Yeah. But the thing that's quite interesting to me is that that and it's a good question, I think, to ask about the comparative rates of suicide there, and for example, among our veterans, that that there is a tenacity, there is a there is a mentality among the people in Gaza that I have met that that is just so grounded, and I think that's part of what we will get when we're there. That we will go and we'll bring light bulbs and we'll bring goodwill and we'll bring love from our people. But what they will give us is a reminder of how to live under the worst circumstances and to maintain your dignity.
Jeez.
So I think they have a lot to teach us, and we're very fortunate that Code Pink has organized this trip for the American piece of the delegation, and also to meet with all these other international women to truly get the story.
Well, I appreciate your time with us. We're kind of like running a little bit out of time.
I think we are, yeah.
Yeah, and so I guess I'll see you. Are you going to be on the conference call on Thursday?
I will be on the conference call, so we will speak then. And I'm wishing everybody who's listening that you pay attention to what's happening in Gaza. And when you return, to just really fill in all the missing blanks that the American people have, because this is a story that's so lost.
I can't wait. I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you so much, Paki.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
So welcome back from the break on Organic News here on Awake Radio. So that was a really full first hour with Paki Wieland of Code Pink, who will be going to Gaza with the group and myself on Tuesday, which I'm starting to get more enthusiastic about. I was a little bit apprehensive, like, what am I doing? I'm like out of my mind. But now I'm kind of starting to really look forward to it. And so now we have Ryan Dawson back with us again. How's it going, Ryan? How's it going over there in Japan?
Well, it's a nice morning over here in Japan. That's exciting that you're going to Gaza.
Yeah, you think so, huh?
I think so. How long are you going for?
So we're I'm flying out on Tuesday, which is the 4th, arriving on the 5th, and staying from the 5th and then coming back on the 13th or something in that vicinity. I'm not sure, like, exactly of the time of the return. I think it's midnight on the 12th, into the 13th.
Yeah, but you'll be there for a good while. That's great. That's good with Code Pink then?
Right.
Well, wonderful.
Yeah, like I was telling Paki, I first heard about it last year when one of the young girl that went on the trip with Code Pink was a guest on his radio show, News Dissector on Progressive Radio Network, and she was talking all about it, and I thought, wow, like, that's, like, part of me was like intrigued, and then another part of me was like, well, that sounds kind of scary. But
well, I have a couple friends that were on the blockade runners that went down there and got stopped. Ken O'Keefe was one, and Julie Levisk, who works for Global Research. Both of them have been down there before.
So Ken O'Keefe. That's how I first learned all about Gaza.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah, I know him. But I've been talking about Gaza for about 14 years.
Jesus, it's that long. My God.
Yeah, I started my first website with Native American issues, and then I realized here's a modern manifest destiny in Palestine. We have the new settlers and the new Indians, which would be the Palestinians, except it's happening now. But sadly, more than a dozen years I've been saying, how insane is it for any country to have racial segregation and colonization and ethnic cleansing right out in the open, breaking international law, and nothing is not only done about it, you can't even talk about it. I mean, the mass media acts like Israel's just defending itself from terrorists and doesn't even mention the fact that they're actively colonizing their neighbors and have Jewish-only houses and Jewish-only roads and bombing kids and segregating schools and all of that. All that part of the story is missing, which is just a phenomenal. How can that not be on one news network, one paper? Nobody can say anything about it. They know they'd lose their job.
I mean, like, so that this is what I'm saying. So is that what people are going to do to have a job? Like, that's what I mean about money, like, and how money equals debt.
Well, this is the thing about the mass media. I mean, it's all the propaganda we heard about the Soviet press in the 80s. That's our press today. It is completely controlled by the Pentagon. If you look at all the three-letter networks, their parent companies go back to the major aerospace contractors with the Pentagon. It's just total corporate welfare. 99% of their wealth comes from government contracts. And a lot of them, as Bill Still pointed out, are leveraged out to the max to banks like JP Morgan. If they don't roll over their loans, they'd be out of business tomorrow. And so they have to obey the government's edicts. And so you saw it during the buildup of the Iraq War. They uniformly lied to everyone about everything, and then after the fact, never corrected themselves, never clearly came out and said, guess what, we were wrong, there weren't any weapons of mass destruction. They just went on to the next propaganda for the next war, for Syria, for Iran, etc., unapologetically. But not one news outfit pointed out the Niger forgeries, for example, or any of the debunked myths about Iraq. They all lied. And they always lie for Israel, always. And I don't think there's a more stinging, concrete example of how controlled the press is than for a state like Israel to exist, colonizing their neighbors, and not a word is said about it.
And it's being funded by the United States.
Oh, right. Well, sort of. Like, they get $3 billion in aid, but that aid, 75% of it is earmarked to be recycled back into U.S. defense industries. So really the government's just giving defense industries a big paycheck and using Israel as just sort of a medium to funnel the money through. But the aid is not a loan. The loans are forgiven every single year. It's free money. They just give them money. So the Israelis get a piece of the pie, their 25%, and the arms industries get their 75%, and the Palestinians get killed.
Nice. Yeah, it's like a greased machine at the expense of a lot of people. I mean, it's like, it literally, it's hard to wrap your head around the fact that people can really, just be so profit driven, to the point where you're just going to wipe out, like populations of people.
Yeah, I've said before that the way in the modern corporation, how they're beholden to stockholders, it's sort of this homologous, like nobody's clearly in charge. It's sort of like littering. Everybody collectively doing it is what makes the damage. But the ideology of growth for the sake of growth is the same as that of a cancer cell, and they'll do anything to push profits up, including exploitation, murder, etc., because it's out of sight, out of mind, and if they didn't do it, someone else would do it, and they just rationalize their position, and the people are suffering for it. And in this case, it's the Palestinians and the Israelis too, because of course there's backlash when you murder people's children. They're going to try and fight back.
I kind of look at all this and what's going on as a bit of like climate change. Because, I have this book that I read when I'm on the subway, and it's called What Every Environmentalist Should Know About Capitalism. The first paragraph when I started to read the book was, just all about, how the, nature and the environment can just not keep up with all this profit and all these corporations that are this unlimited growth, and so these people in Gaza and Palestine are basically just that. I mean, they're like part of the environment. It's like an environmental crisis
Well, it actually is a real environmental crisis because the Israelis have been using depleted uranium since
yeah,
1973, and they've used it not only in Palestine but also in Lebanon and Egypt, and that poisons the ground for a very long time.
and right, and so the people are just like whatever trees or something that are just being like mowed down.
Well,
uh,
actually, they're mowing down the olive trees as well, and
yes.
they take ages to grow, and they're polluting the Palestinian farms, and they burn them down, and they bulldoze everything, including the houses. So yeah, just like the trees, they'll smash a house just as if it was a tree, and then they build a new settlement for the chosen race of God, self-proclaimed. I mean, the Zionist ideology, the perversion of Judaism they have, is where God is both a racist and a real estate agent. I can't think of anything more arrogant than forcefully taking someone's land and saying, "Well, it's okay. God gave it to me." I mean, it's just completely nuts.
See, that's okay, I have to plug yoga just for a minute because the reason why I love this practice is because, like what you just described and how, people perpetuate like their version of God,
Right.
instead of, getting to the level, you have to dig through the layers of shit inside your mind and clear that crap out and really, really connect to, what God is underneath all of the crap perceptions that people think. Like that's what kills me. It's like people take their misalignment, and apply it to, to life, and infringing it on, especially calling it God. I mean, calling something so misaligned as that kind of behavior God
Well, I mean,
is
some people reduce God down to helping their sports team win on a particular day. I mean, it's most of the time, unfortunately, God is just an authoritative cloak to push somebody's personal ideology as, just an extra oomph to say, well, I have the undebunkable authority because there's nothing higher than God, and God wants me to do whatever I just want to do myself. It's just a way to rationalize their own behavior.
so right. I mean, so to get to the to truly like what God is, um what kind of comes to my mind off the top of my head is that movie, Million Dollar Baby, where, Morgan Freeman is kind of narrating this part and he's talking about the training and how you have to strip yourself down to the bare wood.
Well, that's a practice in Zen Buddhism as well as, shedding a lot of uh, conceptions and things that are pushed on you in society. But I wanted to say
Right.
something about the book you were talking about, climate change and environmentalism. That's something that people also have to be very careful about because just like there's a group of people who will rationalize anything for the sake of defense or safety or security, that their brain just turns off and they go, well, it's for defense. Let's just spend as much money as possible. We got to be safe. People will do that with the environment too, because we all want a healthy environment. I mean, who would saw the branch they're sitting on? However, environmentalists aren't always helping the environment, but they're rather just predatory lawyers with a theme, and they
Right.
know that they can work with an air of impunity and get away with whatever they want as long as they, title things with anything to do with the environment, like saying the Patriot Act, which had nothing to do with patriotism, or
Right.
no child left behind. You have the word child is in the title. Who wants to go against that? But if you actually look at what they're doing,
Right.
the proposed solutions for reducing greenhouse gas emissions don't actually do that. All they do is transfer credits from smaller agribusinesses into large agribusinesses, which give them a monopoly over distribution and production, which just is about price controls and people profiting. It has really nothing to do with the environment whatsoever.
Well, that's pretty much why I stick to, health, and I really, because I see it myself all the time. Like so many people, they call themselves awake or, liberty people or something like that. But like more often than not, because people are not really, they're not digging inside of themselves, like on, in fitness terms, because, I'm always like this big advocate for fitness, just physically, mentally, and spiritually. getting underneath, looking inside of themselves, like how their own programming, how we were all programmed to keep this system going. Like, you have to get underneath that stuff. To me, the best way to change the world is to work on yourself, get and dig underneath the program that's inside of yourself.
Well, that's something Gandhi said as well. He said, be the change you want to see in the world. And a lot of the major religions say, take care of your temple being your body, because, and martial arts philosophy, the same thing. You've got to take care of your body because it's all related to your mental health and your immune system and everything else.
Like, and which brings me to my next favorite subject, which is the mind-body connection, because what I see and feel in society so much is how, to such an extent, that the mind is completely disconnected from the body, and it's like this. We live in a mind-dominated world, and it's all about using the head to overpower the body and nature, and people just literally like way overvalue the intellect over reality and the body and being in the present moment so much. Like, I've experienced it so much in my life. Like,
it's one of those false paradigms where they divide the mind and body, and they act like the body's this nasty thing and the intellect is superior and good, and the body is just so lowly or whatever, rather than just seeing, actually, it's all your body. I mean, your brain too and it's all connected. And simple physiology, I mean, the act of smiling actually will change how you feel, and you can start with the physical to change your mental, actually. And exercise and increasing endorphins and all that, you can't just brush that off. And even on the mental side, one of my pet peeves is when I hear this baloney about, are you creative or intellectual? Which is another false paradigm with like this left brain, right brain nonsense. People are usually both. They're usually intelligent, intellectual, and creative, or neither. You're either dumb or smart. But the idea that like, oh, you're good in math, so you suck in English or something like that, it's just part of this need for equality and fear of superiority, where everyone has to be even. So anybody that has a particular talent, it has to come with the stigma of being negative. If somebody is an intellectual, say, scientific-minded kid in school, they don't want to be stuck with the stigma of not being emotional and being cold-hearted and socially inept or something. And likewise, if somebody's very artistic, they don't want to be branded as being, oh, because I'm artistic, I'm also an airhead and unanalytical and just an emotional like loser. No matter what your talent is, it always gets tagged with some negative thing, and it makes people steer away from those fields, because they, as children anyway, because they don't want to be associated with the negative side of what comes with their talent in art or science or whatever it is. So I really hate that paradigm of creativity versus intellect, because the thing is, they are one and the same. You have to have imagination and sympathy and empathy and other to be moral, and you have to have an intellect as well. It takes those acts of imagination. Our most supreme and best science and scientists ever have been the imaginative ones. I mean, that's how it always comes about. But they have this silly notion of dividing like topics for academics, as if being good at one thing means you have to be terrible at another, and that's utter nonsense.
Right. And I mean, I think of the body, because I doing fitness and everything, and they talk about like proportion and posture, but there's also like an emotional posture with, like all of your different emotional parts being in the same kind of balance and healthy posture as your body is in, so I just think of it that way. And like you mentioned martial arts, and for the longest time I've wanted to do martial art. I feel I'm at a point now where I feel like I have to do it. Like, I feel like I have to learn self-defense, because like I see how like I've been so programmed by society, to basically screw myself and live beyond my means and be like nice all the time when I really can't afford it, and like, you're bad if you're not always kind of people pleasing and being what everybody wants you to be all the time. And and it's you have to say no. Like, you have to have your limits and your boundaries, without guilt. and without like fear of like conflict. Like what I notice, again about like people is that they really don't like when there's limits. Like if you set limits, you're some kind of bad person if you're not being giving, if you don't have an endless smile on your face all the time. I mean, sometimes like I think it's good to just like embrace your.
Well, it reminds me of the preacher in the Canterbury Tales, who's going around telling everybody to be charitable and give money. Meanwhile, what is he doing? He's collecting money from everybody and being the greediest person there.
Right.
But I highly, highly recommend martial arts. It's been great in my life. It allows me to do and say what I want, where and when I want, whenever I want. But the idea of self-defense or the scenario of being in a fight or whatever is a very improbable, pretty small thing for that to happen. But that's not the purpose of it. It's just that the process of practicing the martial arts, so that yes, that could happen. You may get in a fight, but that's really, it doesn't matter. As in any other sport, the putting the ball across the line or in the hoop or whatever is not something you're going to go carry over in your real life. It's just all the activity involved in doing that, improving your speed, your strength, your coordination, etc. in whatever the sport is. That's the healthy aspect of it, and the goal, the end result doesn't really matter whether you're hitting a target or throwing a ball or punch or whatever. That doesn't matter. It's just the process that matters, not the aim in the end.
Exactly. And more for the mental discipline. I would go do it more for the mental discipline. And of course like
I would compare the mental aspect of martial arts on par with mastering a musical instrument or something. It takes daily dedication and a lot of willpower.
And the reason why I love anything fitness related is because you're just utilizing just so much more than what people utilize. I mean, we have so much, physically and just energetically that is not being utilized in our own best interest. And what we don't, the thing I like so much about yoga practice is that it teaches you to integrate. They use the word integrate a lot in yoga, and it's all about integrating all of the parts of yourself that we were taught, to cut ourselves off from. And so all that energy, because so many things, we learn to be ashamed of in our lives, like normal, healthy feelings, we learn to be kind of ashamed of like sexuality or fear or
pride.
And so like those emotions and that energy gets kind of cut off, and our bodies are like, holding it locked away inside of us somewhere. And yoga is all about, breathing, like moving into all that tightness and all that bearing down and holding on, and breathing into it and freeing up and letting out all of that energy that's really working against us, and teaches us how to make it work for us instead.
If I can nerd out for just a second, I think that humans evolve with a particular level of physical, social, and intellectual activity. But in modern times, and creative activity as well, of course, but in modern times, we're really lopsided, and we push everything on academics. And you look at children that are stuck in school 6 or 7 hours a day, sitting in a desk, and a lot of the physical and social activity that we evolved with, that is gone. And so you need some kind of surrogate, whether it's yoga, martial arts, sports, or something, to exercise that potential. If you're not actualizing your potential, you're going to be unhealthy and unhappy. And we push everything in forcing kids to learn all this mathematics and all these good intellectual things. These aren't bad things, but there has to be a lot more balance. And I think the school system, it treats PE as just a sort of side elective thing. So is health class. It's sort of it's on the bottom of the pyramid of the hierarchy of academic subjects. Yeah. But I mean, in school, they won't teach you economics until college or philosophy, but there's a lot of things they don't want you to learn about. but they'll push in fictional fairy tale time, which is their English class, which is usually just literature. I mean, those things are important, but they shouldn't have the weight that they have compared to some of the subjects that are treated as secondary. The arts and musics and physical health and things like that are just sort of like meh, and yet they're vitally important and usually a lot more useful in the real world, which is funny how people talk about school and real life, because they all understand that school is not real life. That's how removed it is from anything practical that you're going to use in your life.
And speaking of math, I mean, I think a martial art, and yoga practice is all about math. I mean, it's all about physics and weight and leverage, and to me, like, I feel like I've learned more about math and the economy through, fitness and weight training and yoga than I ever would have if I was, maybe working on Wall Street or something.
Well, I mean, certainly there's a lot more physics in sports and in baseball and whatever than there's going to be in just at least the more concrete type that you can see, witness, than what you get in the classroom usually. But I mean, you can put math into anything. I mean, everything's measurable and everything requires all of that. But what I don't like is how in math class is divorced from economics. I mean, if a kid asks, "What is this for?" in your real life, the majority of the math you're actually going to use will be for economic purposes, whether it's just simply balancing your checkbook, opening a bank account, or whatever. But that's where you could use all this math, but they put the focus on calculus instead, and I really wish that the high aim instead of calculus would be more towards statistics and things that can be applicable to economic life, because I just find that far more useful, and I think people could be a lot more motivated to learn it when they can see what it's for than the really rare instances of calculus and things for very specific jobs. It's not that we don't need to know that either, but I think the aim should be more towards stats, and I think calculus should be considered the specialist type of thing, but they've got it all upside down. And I could say that for every subject. I mean, history, the history class in school is basically the history of war. They don't do the history of invention, the history of science, history of religion, history of philosophy. There are lots of different types of history to follow besides the government's killing each other by sending their peons in as cannon fodder to go steal land.
Right, and they definitely don't teach you about the, American history with the Indians. I mean, they made them seem like savages or something.
Well, Columbus has his own holiday, and he killed 11 million people just in the Caribbean alone without even reaching the mainlands of the Americas. 11 million. That's about 2 Holocausts from World War II, and that was within a 2-year period. And they fed people to dogs and chopped off their hands and ran them through with swords and burned them alive and raped women to death with gangs and all manner of horror. They actually sold little girls to gangs to be raped to death. And the man has a holiday. He has his own holiday. And he's credited with discovering the New World, which isn't true considering it was inhabited and many, many other explorers had already been there and back, and it was well known for 400 some years before Columbus.
It's pretty brutal, boy. I mean, there's such brutality in the world. But so
we have torture today in Gitmo.
Oh,
in Gitmo.
I hate to interrupt you, but you're popping and crackling, and you've got some really good information. Should we go to a song? You want me to do a recall while we wait?
Sure. I mean, he sounds good to me. I don't hear anything.
I'm getting some distortion, and so are the listeners.
Oh.
That's fair.
A quick song and a recall.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, so we're back. We were experiencing what I was told was a bit of interference or just not coming in clear, which, I can't notice. I mean, to me, Ryan is coming in perfectly clear. He wasn't saying anything that he couldn't hear me, but apparently listeners were not able to hear us. So maybe we should, we'll just kind of rewind a little bit and go back to...
Well, maybe we can ask the NSA for a copy.
Yeah, maybe that's why we're coming in crackly, right?
I was talking about the educational system before, and I was just using mathematics as an example on how currently calculus is sort of the aim in mathematics for, let's say, high school or so. And I think it ought to be aimed more towards statistics and and math that can be used in economics, because I think it's a lot more useful, and I think students are more motivated to use math that they can see is applicable to their life and know what it's for, than the more sort of specialist type of math that you see in calculus and that kind of thing. Exactly. And that's for every subject. Every subject seems to be upside down. They sort of drown students in academic minutia and prevent them from learning the real quality and usually easier things that would have more impact on their life and be far more useful than what they're getting in school. Because they get out of school and they have to relearn all those skills they weren't taught anyway, and basically learn their job the first 2 weeks they're on their job just by watching the people who have been there ahead of them apprentice style. So yeah, we waste a lot of time on an overload of academics.
What I just thought about was that when we're growing up, we learn how to like ride a bike or roller skate or things like that, which takes mind body interaction to learn all these things. But then when you get older, you're taught to just kind of blindly follow orders and not to listen to what your gut says, which again, like that's something that I never did in my life. Like, that doesn't make any sense, because the whole point of life is to, be your own person. I mean, to be an individual, to listen to your instincts, to listen to your gut. I mean, that's, what everybody should be being encouraged to do. And to be, a lot of these, the police department, the military, like this just, most people just say in their jobs or like, the Holocaust, like, oh, I'm just like following orders. I mean.
Well, our police department's completely out of control in the United States, but there was a story recently, and it was sad, but I mean, it was just not comparable to some other things the cops have been doing. But I found this interesting. I think it was last week, there was some blonde girl jogging, and she got arrested for jaywalking. And it was everywhere in the news, but the cops kill people every day. Kill people and get away with it. And they never put that in the news. But they had this white girl with blonde hair crying in handcuffs, and it was in Huffington Post and AOL and on TV. And I'm like, okay, it was definitely wrong what the cops did to her, but it must be nice to have a voice, because a lot of people do not, and they're getting their dogs shot, they're getting their houses raided, sometimes their children get killed.
Brian, sorry, Paula, she's telling me that it's worse. The transmission sounds worse, she's saying. So I'm wondering if we maybe we can hang up and maybe like I can add you to the call instead of her adding you to the call.
All right, I'll try whatever you want to do.
I mean, I just asked her how it sounds, and she said it sounds worse. Paula, can
you want to try that?
Yeah. Okay, we're trying it again. Sorry about that, folks, but I just keep getting messages from Paula that the quality of the sound is not coming over clearly, even though everything from where I'm sitting and from where Ryan is sitting sounds perfectly clear. So we're going to go for 3 more minutes, and then I'm going to play an interview that I did with Debra Sweet yesterday. So go ahead, Ryan, finish what you were talking about.
Sure. Well, I mean, it's unfortunate to have audio problems, but when you go to Gaza, make sure you take lots of pictures and keep me updated on that so that I can get that information out, because really the only way we ever get any information out of Gaza is from independent journalists on the ground, because the mass media is a complete joke.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we need to start valuing each other more. I mean, people are so in the habit of kind of like treating those around them. I mean, I don't know if you experience it, but I do. People, it's like the more they know somebody, the more, they feel comfortable with somebody. They feel more comfortable treating that person like shit. And I think that's something people really need to be aware of. it's such an unconscious kind of thing. And it takes too much effort, I feel like, for people to be paying attention and to be because you have to make an effort, I don't see people putting a whole lot of effort into really changing. Like me, my whole life I was doing self-help stuff and self-improvement stuff. My whole life was about, being mindful of the way that I speak, the words that I choose, conscious communication. Like, I don't see anybody doing any of that stuff.
Well, I think a lot of people aren't even aware that there's anything wrong. When it comes to something like Palestine, most Americans have never heard of Palestine and could care less. They have enough problems themselves, finding jobs and getting work, and they don't. Look at Detroit. I mean, we worry about Palestine, but in our own backyard, we have a city that's completely bankrupt, and all those people who it looks the same as Palestine, really, with the dilapidated houses and everything else. There's poverty everywhere, and we have to have empathy and sympathy for everybody, and distance shouldn't negate any particular people, but it is preventable. But what happened to Detroit, as bad as it is an economic problem. What happened to Palestine is because of Israeli aggression, which is completely immoral and very preventable. But we don't really, they're voiceless people, and it's a very difficult political solution because you can't really change the politics until people change themselves first and have a social revolution. Until you have that social change, you can't really have a political change. It's not going to happen. That's historically how things are.
Yep. But I want to thank you, and I want to apologize for the the technical difficulties. I don't recall having it the last time you were on, but yeah, so we'll just take a really short break, and then Paula will play the interview that I did with Debra Sweet, which is only a 20-minute interview. So thank you, Ryan, and I'll talk to you when I get back from Gaza.
Okay, I'll talk to you then. Bye-bye.
Bye, thank you. Okay, welcome to, this is a pre-recorded interview. I have Debra Sweet on the line, who I haven't spoken to in a while. You, Debra, you agreed to interview with me. We're just gonna, we'll have your recording and we'll play it on a live show of Awake Radio, and you were going to be filling me in on some of the things that, because I haven't actually spoken to you in a while, and so you were just telling me about this Wednesday is a Trayvon Martin protest that's going to be happening in the city.
It's going to be happening all over the country,
all over
the United States, actually. But it will also be in several places in New York City. Wednesday, February 26th, is the second anniversary of the street execution of Trayvon Martin,
right,
who was a black teenager in Sanford, Florida, by George Zimmerman, a security guard vigilante who took it upon himself to shoot Trayvon 2 years ago, and then went on trial for it in the summer of 2013 and was completely let off on the basis of the jury finding he had shot Trayvon in self-defense. And this was such an outrage that really tens of thousands of people took to the streets around the U.S. in response to that verdict last July.
right,
Only to have this happening again and again. And then another black teenager named Jordan Davis,
right,
was killed outside of Jacksonville, Florida.
That was the one
last year.
The guy said he was playing the music too loud.
Yeah, a man named Michael Dunn, white guy in his 50s, pulled into the convenience store parking lot, and there were 4 black teenagers in a vehicle playing music, and Dunn told them to turn the music down, and they argued back. We don't have to turn the music down. This all came out in the testimony of the trial.
Right.
And Jordan Davis was shot and killed instantly by Dunn, who fired a lot of shots at the vehicle, and fortunately he didn't hit or kill anyone else. But he, again, 10 days ago, was let go for the killing of Jordan Davis by a jury who voted 9-3 for conviction, but the 3 holdouts allowed him not to be convicted of Davis's murder. He was convicted of attempted murder in the cases of the 3 friends that were with Jordan. But this is one other example of vigilantism across the country sort of having a resurgence, that there are no rights black people have that white people are bound to respect. We're seeing a lot of instances. A young woman named Renisha McBride was killed last year in Detroit when she went to the door of a house knocking for help after a car accident.
Oh, yeah, I think I heard about that one.
And the guy that lived there said, "Oh, I thought she was trying to break in," just blew her away. No conversation, nothing.
Since when do people breaking into your house knock on the door?
Yeah, good point, right? So the protest on Tuesday has taken on, really the spirit of saying no more murders and terrorizing and criminalizing of Black and Latino youth. And it is marking the 2 years since Trayvon was killed, and it's in the street protest. And it's going to be interesting because the call by the Stop Mass Incarceration Network is for people to go out to public places at 6 p.m., wherever they are, and to print out something that's on their website, which is stopmassincarceration.org. Just a simple graphic of a target, like the targets that are used in target practice.
Right.
And on it says no more. And people are going to go out in public wearing hoodies with their fists raised, silently protesting while holding up that target and saying no more all across the country. So in New York, we're going to start at Union Square at 5 p.m. on Wednesday, February 26th. And then we're going to regather up at Times Square by the Red Steps at 47th Street and Broadway at 6:30. And as I said, this will be going on around the country. People can find out more at stopmassincarceration.net.
And there's a lot of violence going on, like all over the world, especially in the Ukraine lately, which I'm not an expert on that situation, but I believe that the people want the EU, which kind of doesn't make any sense to me. I don't think the people realize what the EU is.
Mm-hmm.
And they're actually, fighting to be involved in something that is on its way down and is taking other countries down. Is my knowledge of that situation. I haven't been keeping as up on that as I have been, trying to learn and prepare myself, for the trip that I'm taking with Code Pink to go to landing in Cairo and then attempting to cross into Gaza via the blockade in Rafah.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't been doing a good job at all at raising much funds for that situation. I really didn't think it was going to be that hard, considering that I don't really need that much money. If I made $1,000, if I could raise $1,000, I would be extremely happy. But so far, I've come up with just less than $200 with the GoFundMe Trip to Gaza and the Trip to Gaza Facebook page that I created and have been sharing all over with Palestinian, anyone that of course would be in support of it.
I think it's a really important trip, and the fact that you're going attempting to go to Gaza, and you'll be in Cairo and making that political struggle to get into Gaza, to meet people there, to hear their stories, and listen and learn and engage with them about what the history is of Gaza in particular, and the Israeli conquering of Palestine in general, and the specific people you're going to meet. It's really, really important that you and many people, go and do this, because it helps to humanize and, just, it helps to bring it home to people here. And after all, in the United States, we're living in a country that is responsible for Israel being able to play the role it plays in the world.
Right, it's U.S. is funding Israel.
Yeah, I mean, number one, it funds Egypt. Number two, it funds Israel. There's Saudi Arabia. There's all sorts of ways in which the hand of the United States is involved in what happens to oppress the people of Gaza and the West Bank and all across Palestine. I thank you for going, and I hope people will donate and give $5, $10, $15, $100. It'll make a big difference in you being able to get there and come back and go back to some of the same communities you've been going to recently.
Right. I did, I wanted to go, just to learn and see things for myself. I plan on filming, documenting the entire trip, talking to people. I mean, we have this whole itinerary that, hopefully if we do get to cross into Gaza, to just talk to the local people about, what's going on, fishermen, women, locals, farmers, I believe, people in the government even, and so it would be a really good experience for, I try to be as good of a journalist as I can, but, without funds, it really is, or without working for someone like a Democracy Now! Or something like that, it's a bit, challenging to do things, but, maybe after I come back and I, with the documented, information, the videos, then maybe people, it's never too late to donate. On GoFundMe, Trip to Gaza, and my Facebook page is just Trip to Gaza, Cat Waters. I mean, anything, $10, $5 would be great. I know it's not a lot of people have money these days, but so what's going on with the Guantanamo? How's that? Is there any news?
Well, it's funny, in some ways there's more of the same, and in other ways there's news to bring people up to date. There are still way too many men held in Guantanamo,
right?
Including those that have been already cleared for release. There's basically three groups left. There's the ones that the United States has charged and plans to try with military commissions, which are not legal due process by any stretch of the imagination. That's about 30 men. There's about 45 men or so who the U.S. has said they do not plan to charge nor release, meaning they're going to hold them indefinitely and review their cases periodically. So finally, some of those reviews are starting after Obama really promised this 5 years ago when he took office. And then the biggest group are men that have been cleared for release previously, as long ago as 2007. So men that have been told, we don't have anything to charge you with, you're free to go, except that no one will take you, have been sitting there for as much as 7 years. It's completely outrageous all the way across the board.
What does that mean, nobody will take you? What, like they can't go back
They won't let them just walk out the door. They won't let them go to their home countries in most cases.
Oh, so I mean, like it's not that their countries won't take them; they're just not going to let them leave.
Yeah, well, it's complicated because you have the Godfather in operation here, the United States government. There are many countries who do not wish to violate anything that that the U.S. government wants to have happen. And then there are other countries that, in some cases, those men do not want to be released to, like Algeria, which is right now, right now the government of Algeria is Islamic fundamentalist, and men who may have Algerian citizenship, but who have lived in other countries for years before they were seized by the United States, don't want to go back there either, and they should be able to go to a country where they can live free and resume their lives. And the United States has done worse than nothing in terms of setting up release for the prisoners from Yemen. That's the biggest group that are left, and because the U.S. is very worried about and at the same time has created the conditions for an aspect of civil war in Yemen, they're not letting those prisoners leave. It's 55 men.
And even if they were actually physically released, I mean, they would still have the psychological traumas of being held there and tortured, as was shown in that the documentary Doctors of the Dark Side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you were at a film showing that we did last month in New York City, and the techniques that were developed under the Bush administration in particular, we call it the Bush regime, were adapted from techniques that the United States says no country should ever use, and then they renamed and relabeled them. Instead of torture, they called it enhanced interrogation, and we got to see some of those techniques explained and dramatized in that film. And the situation at Guantanamo right now is that because of a hunger strike begun a year ago, when almost all the prisoners at various times were engaged in the hunger strike, there's been tremendous punishment of the prisoners. They've been put back in solitary confinement, and most importantly, many of them have been force-fed, all of which is recognized to be against the rights of prisoners internationally, against international law, and is something that the U.S. does with impunity. And most recently, I read, and I sent this out last week, the account of a prisoner who's been cleared for release since 2008, for many years, who was talking about how when the hunger strikes first started in Guantanamo in 2003, 4, and 5, which seems like a very long time ago now,
Right.
they could count on some, well, if not necessarily support, at least sympathy from the medical staff at the prison. And they felt like their physical health and their mental health would be watched over by the medical staff. But these prisoners said now this is completely changed, and that the medical staff being sent into Guantanamo is sent on the basis of never questioning anything that the government orders and not looking out for the needs of the prisoners at all. And it's particularly brutal and cruel. So there's no
cushion left.
Yeah, there's no safety in the so-called medical system. In fact, the medical system itself has become a method of torture and interrogation. So you have solitary confinement, sleep deprivation, and force feeding, any one of which adds up to torture.
I know that this is a very like hypothetical question, but why do you think that is? I mean, why is it, just, it seems it's so easy for people to just want to harm and torture other people. Like, I mean, I really don't get that. I mean, why people just don't say like, no, I'm not, I refuse to do it. I mean, what is it about a person that would make them want to go along with that kind of a treatment of another person? I mean, what is it? There's got to be something, just fundamentally at some level, that would make somebody like want to participate. I mean, it has to be a little bit more than just like a mob mentality.
I think people have been indoctrinated, at least in the last 10 or 12 years, since the Bush regime started this war on terror, and we've seen this in a lot of popular culture, everything from the TV series 24 to the film Zero Dark 30. There's a lot of popular culture promoting the idea that the war on terror is about protecting American lives. And clearly some people have resisted and not gone along with it. And others are adapting themselves to it, which is an outrage. And it really is participating in a crime against humanity.
I mean, even if the people being detained did something and were guilty of something, to treat them that way would be, inhumane. But the fact that they're not even being charged, they're cleared for release. So, I mean, there is no logical explanation.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that we're running out of time, that you only have a short amount of time today, but I wanted to just mention that on, I believe it's next Monday, which is the
March 3rd.
Right, March the 3rd, they'll be having their second vigil, No Separate Justice, because they're actually trying to show that there's indefinite detention and torture going on right here in New York at 150 Park Row at the Metropolitan Correctional Center, where we met last month. It got postponed till February the 10th because of the weather, and it was absolutely freezing out the night that they had it, and so they'll be having another one Monday, March the 3rd at, I believe it's at 6 o'clock.
Right, and people can find that No Separate Justice on Facebook.
Yeah, that's, that was, if anybody wants to see the videos from the last one, just go to my YouTube channel, April, like the month, and Waters, Watters, and just look up No Separate Justice. It was really good. The people that spoke were extremely, passionate in waking people up to what's going on. And the scary thing about it is, American citizens are going to be next if we don't do anything to put an end to this. I mean, injustice to one person is injustice to everyone.
And scary enough that it's happening to anybody in our name.
Jeez.
Mm-hmm.
So I thank you so much. And I guess I will, perhaps I'll see.
Are you going to report live from Gaza?
Oh, absolutely. I plan on documenting my whole trip with video interviews, just documenting everything that goes on, photographs, and interviewing the people.
Great.
And
I look forward to that.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I ask people, please go to GoFundMe, Trip to Gaza, and any small donation helps, or my Facebook page, Trip to Gaza, Cat Waters. And so Thank you, Deborah. Keep up the good fight.
Thanks, Kat.
Okay.
Safe travels. Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, thank you.